We have gone too far now to turn back, and we will not be content until the sagging walls of segregation have been crushed all over this community by the battering rams of the forces of justice.
King intended his presence in St. Augustine to attract the media, national as well as local. Cameras were there to catch local whites beating black kids trying to swim from the beaches. The networks were there when pickets tried to anticipate the passage of the new Civil Rights Bill by attempting to integrate a local restaurant. And when the media reported that somebody had opened fire on King's rented cottage, he was away for a day, the president was forced to take notice. He called the Florida senator, George Smathers.
What about St. Augustine? They're giving me uncharted hell on that. And is St. Augustine a pretty bad place?
No, St. Augustine, it's a typically rural place.
They say they're shooting into King's white man's house down there. He's demanding we go in.
My own judgment is that this is a damn plant. King is, naturally, he loves a headline, and the facts show that when he was there nothing was at all shot at, and the night that he announced publicly he was going to leave, it was then shot into, and the next night he was back there, and nobody's bothered him at all.
King was not a man to pass up a chance to prod President Johnson. Messages demanding federal intervention poured into Washington. Johnson, watching news agency reports, called Lee White.
Mr. White, sir.
Lee.
Yes, Mr. President.
I noticed Martin Luther King at 424 UPI. He will ask President Johnson to send federal marshals in the city to preserve law and order. King said he would urge in a telegram to Johnson not only protection but also personal intervention by the president to open communication between the white and Negro communities.
What we do have is a telegram from Wyatt Walker, one of his aides, saying that the Justice Department has not taken proper precautionary measures to safeguard the life of Dr. King.
Why don't you all do whatever you need to and take whatever action you think's indicated?
All right, I will.
As King well knew, direct federal intervention was not a step Johnson would likely take, and as Johnson knew, King was being deliberately provocative.
Treat me like a human being. We're all private property.
With reporters in attendance, King now led a group of activists to an all-white motel, the Monson Motor Lodge. Fighting broke out when 5 young blacks and 2 whites dived into the segregated swimming pool. The manager counterattacked with plastic jugs of an acid cleaner.
King ain't got me yet, fellas. This business of the King and his nonviolent army is the biggest joke I've heard of. He's not broke the spirit of this community. We just getting right here right now. So you can tell the people that.
Altogether, 34 demonstrators were arrested, including Dr. King. He was charged with violating Florida's unwelcome guest laws. And he spent 3 days in jail. On the 4th day, he left for Yale University to receive an honorary degree. Next day, June the 19th, was another bad day for Hoover, but a triumph for Johnson and also for King. In the Senate, after 6 months of obstruction, the Southern Conservative bloc had been voted down. It was the last obstacle blocking a new Civil Rights Act. Johnson called Roy Wilkins, a prominent civil rights leader.
I haven't got the official news yet. I've been at a
73 to 27.
73-27.
Yeah.
Mr. President, that's very good news.
Well, you're a mighty good man. You deserve all the credit, and I sure do salute you, and I'm mighty proud of you.
Mr. President?
Our trouble is just beginning. I guess you know that.
Yes, I know.
I want to take some leadership. I'm just afraid of what's going to happen this summer, like I saw yesterday at St. Augustine.
What Johnson had been watching on television was the white backlash in St. Augustine.
All of the forces of hell, all of the black mobs, King and his black revolutionaries, the entire communist conspiracy is concentrating on St. Augustine. Right. I don't think that the Civil Rights Bill settles anything. All that the Civil Rights Bill does is to start a race war in the United States.
On July the 2nd, the 1964 Civil Rights Bill outlawing institutionalized segregation was approved by the Congress and signed into law in the East Room of the White House. Martin Luther King, now the undisputed leader of black Americans, was placed close to the president's chair. Also there, but on the sidelines, was Edgar Hoover. President Johnson greeted him warmly.
Hello, Edgar. Glad to see you, my friend.
Indisputably, the law of the land was now on the side of Martin Luther King, but the nation's chief law enforcement officer did not call off his vendetta. A written FBI directive said this:
"We must intensify our coverage of King, this moral degenerate. The main goal is to neutralize or completely discredit the effectiveness of King as a Negro leader."
On the 15th of July, Hoover's agents went to the Bell Company's Atlanta switching center and doubled the number of taps on the telephone lines at King's headquarters. FBI men monitoring calls between Coretta King and her absent husband noticed that his frequent travels were straining their marriage. A telex to Hoover said this:
"There is increased evidence of marital discord in the King family. The current situation could conceivably result in a breach between the principals."
Or better still, a divorce.
You got to remember, if you've got 10 guys in Atlanta and a crew at the Bureau and all the money you need, and they're going to destroy one man, they can come up with all kinds of things to do to try to destroy him. And they did.
Armed with a permit called a trash recovery order, signed by the chief himself, the agents now delved into dustbins outside King's Atlanta headquarters. They were looking for a sample of the handwriting of Andrew Young, the movement's personable office manager. Then the forgers went to work.
They took the handwriting, duplicated it, wrote all kinds of messages to Mrs. King, trying to make it appear that people who were very close in his own personal circle were involved sexually with his wife, trying to get warfare going between the players in the King camp.
King was spending a fortnight at home in Atlanta working on a book. One evening, FBI men monitoring his phone calls learned he was to visit a woman friend.
Well, there was some indication that King was going to see this particular woman for illicit sex. They had an elaborate scheme. I was in the office that night, I remember. And they made the call to the fire department from the office and told them that there was a fire in this house. They raided the house. King came out, got in his car and went home. Psychological warfare, to try to destroy the man any way you could.
Compared with what was to come, those were merely dirty tricks. A crisis in the White House was now to put the president in debt to Hoover, allowing the FBI to try to get King to kill himself. In the autumn of 1964, Lyndon Johnson was unassailable. His record of legislative achievement outshone even Franklin Roosevelt's. His election by a landslide was a certainty. Then, a month before polling day, a political lightning bolt struck the White House and forced the president to appeal for help to King's tormentor, J. Edgar Hoover.